Welcome back, everyone. Today, we dive into a story that will make you question how much control you really have over yourself. Meet John, a man who seemed calm, disciplined, and untouchable. Everyone admired him, but nobody knew the secret he carried. Control yourself. John was the kind of person everyone trusted. Calm, composed, disciplined, he seemed to have life figured out. At work, colleagues relied on him to handle crises without breaking a sweat. Friends called him the Rock. But John had a secret. A darkness inside him, buried since college, stirred when he lost control. Back then, a minor argument with his roommate had turned violent. John didn't remember everything, only the smashed windows, the overturned furniture, and the fear in his roommate's eyes. That day, he swore he would never let it happen again. Years later, John's life seemed perfect. A stable job, a quiet apartment, few friends, but enough distance to keep his inner darkness in check. He was proud of his discipline. But one rainy evening, the illusion of control would shatter. Walking home, John saw a fight erupt on the street between two men. His instincts screamed at him to intervene, but caution held him back. That hesitation was all it took. A knife glinted in the rain. Before John could react, it was in his hand, yet not from the attacker. In a blur, the blade had cut deep into one of the men. Blood pooled at John's feet. Shock paralyzed him. Terrified and confused, he fled into an abandoned building. There, he caught his breath and finally confronted the truth he'd buried for years. His control was an illusion. Something inside him, something alive, had acted without his consent. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a calm, old man who seemed unnervingly familiar. "You think you lost control," the man said softly. "But you didn't. You transferred it." "What do you mean?" John asked, his voice trembling. "The part of you that acts without permission. It waits for fear, for anger, for hesitation. Suppressing it only gives it strength. You must learn to coexist with it." The old man, who refused to give his name, became John's guide. Over months, John discovered that the darkness within him wasn't evil, it was primal instinct amplified by fear. He trained to feel it, acknowledge it, and redirect it. John learned to control not just his actions, but his awareness. He practiced in shadows, in abandoned streets, sometimes testing the limits of what he could restrain. Slowly, he regained a fragile balance. But the darkness was cunning. It whispered in moments of anger, temptation, and stress, always testing John. One evening, a news report flashed across his TV, a knife attack eerily similar to the one John had been involved in months ago. Fear gripped him. Could the darkness have acted on its own again, somewhere? One evening, John returned to his apartment to find a small, wrapped box waiting. Inside was a cracked mirror. Behind it, a note. "Control yourself, or the part that you think obeys you will control the world instead." Looking into the mirror, John saw not just his reflection, but his other self. A version of him alive with chaos, smiling back. The old man's lessons replayed in his mind: suppression doesn't work. Coexistence does. The final twist hit John like lightning. The darkness had always been a part of him, not an external force. Every act of fear, hesitation, or impulse had been a conversation with it. And now, it wasn't just inside him. It could influence the world through him. Control wasn't about stopping it. Control was about knowing when to let it act, when to restrain it, and when to guide it. John understood at last, the fight was never outside. It was inside him all along. John receives a mysterious message the next day: you controlled yourself yesterday. But today, the world wants to see what you really are. This sets up for a second part where John's darkness could interact with the real world, testing his limits even further.